Also, you notice that there was another character right there at the end, foreshadowing that you might meet someone on your journey here.
Actually, the only AI-controlled character in the whole experience is that little glimpse of one at the end of the hallway.
Which is I really love, because you almost, especially if it's on a smaller TV, you it's like you swear you just hallucinated that person.
A mirage in the desert?
Yeah, exactly. Because it used to be long ago, it was at the end of this area, and you would be like running up the sand dune, and you'd see them and they'd like run away from you. This is a much more sort of subtle and elegant design for that.
So this is the first area in the game where the internet actually tries to connect you between players, and we don't know when we will be running into them, but this is the first stage where it's possible.
And because of that, we tried to design the whole stage to make it easier for people to find each other, and that's why we put the big cliff on the side, make it so that you have to figure out how to get out of this area, so you spend more time in this area.
Yeah, and like the puzzles are kind of arranged in this triangular fashion, so you kind of retraverse the same areas over and over again. Whereas some of the later levels, like the level after this, it's more linear, where you're going from the start to the end. But in this area, it's more likely to run across someone because you're spending more time in sort of a more confined area.
Yeah, so Nick mentioned the triangular shape. What the player is climbing right now is one of the, according to the internet, the stone serpent. There are 3 of them, and they just form this triangle. So when you move from one to the other, it's very likely you can see the other players.
Have you seen, based on like what people put on Facebook and Twitter, have people been able to pick up that those are, the machines? That have people commented a lot about that and seen?
I think that that's something that players realize after their first playthrough. When they first come through this area, what we really wanted them to see is these kind of sculptural ruined things and not really worry about them too much. And then on the second playthrough or third playthrough, see them again and have more context and understand maybe what this kind of arrangement would mean for the history of the world and stuff like that.
Hopefully, even on the first playthrough, there is sort of a subconscious cue that this is a world here that you're in, and something happened.
Yeah,
that's usually one of those things that I like to build into the music. Like if you want to plant a seed, with somebody that can later be recalled, you do it through the music. Though I didn't actually do that here. Like I have definite sort of musical colors and things that I associate with these stone serpents later on that I don't use here, partly because you're not interacting with them in a way that's direct enough that it would have been clear that that's what I was pointing at, but also because it just, as subtle as that would be in certain ways, it still somehow feels like that would have been really over the top to be like, look, a little touch of ominousness,
Yeah, and it's the player's experience too.
Exactly. That's kind of that's by far the bigger point, is in the same way that you guys aren't trying to force a player down some super ultra linear path that spoon feeds everything to them. The score, both in terms of its adaptivity and in terms of its sort of emotional content, was trying to avoid forcing the player to feel a certain way. The way I've been describing it to people is that it's like, in the same way as the game, you're creating an environment that they can kind of choose to live in however they want, and as opposed to like, you are now on the bridge, although I guess we are about to get that cue.
Well, I think it is the balance of those two things, definitely. And like this queue is pretty short, but it does feel nice when you first start flying across the bridge.
Drunk. Yeah, I love that about the game in general, is that you play it, and like depending on the mood you're in, it's actually a very different feeling game. Like it can be really emotional, or it can be just sort of sort of visually beautiful, but in a way that's actually very sort of sedate. But you can really get lost in it and have a really profound experience.
Seems like we haven't connected to anyone.
Yeah, could this be it's too early in the morning? Gamers don't play a game in the morning.
Early morning on a Thursday or Friday?
Yeah.
What day is it?
We're developers.
It's a Schmonday?
So here you see for the first time the ancestor's face. These ancestors weren't always in this kind of white space that's kind of this meditation or vision of the character. They were originally in the actual world and they came out and it was quite silly. Yes.
It felt a little strange, I think.
They were very literal, and what we ended up with, does allow the player to interpret it a bit more how they want, how comfortable they are with imagining that the ancestor is a physical thing or might just be a memory.
Yeah, and some people they're like gods. They're like a deity, and for some people they are like a remnant of the whatever civilization this is, or they're maybe a reflection of you.
And I think that in our whole design process, we really wanted to encourage players to make their own kind of decisions about those kind of things.
Well, I think on the team, even amongst the team members, it was one way of getting everyone to be able to see the same story, is we didn't all have to interpret these characters the same way.
Yeah, no, I remember observing that early on, was that everybody had their own sort of take on what an area was or what an object was or these characters. And I love that it's like, it's built into the design that of course players are going to have their own interpretation because the team itself does not have some unified like secret backstory. It's actually pretty loose internally as well.
Maybe Matt does.
Well, yeah, they're called Rythulians.
Yes.
And,
Maybe this is the opportunity for us to reveal the backstory.
No, I don't think we should ever do that. So this
was the world of Flower after the apocalypse. And,
some players would like to think so.
So this is
definitely
this has been one of my favorite levels. This is the one I'd go to like when it was late at night, right before E3 or something, and we were working pretty hard. And I could just spend like an hour and a half just wandering the deserts.
Yeah, in the E3 or the post E3 public beta, it only really went through to this area, and people would talk about how they played the game for like 2 or 3 hours, which meant that they basically spent a lot of time in just this area.
This reminds me of our trip to the Pismo Beach, which at the beginning of the development, we actually went to find this giant dune beach next to the ocean. Oh wait, it looks like we are connected to someone.
I got a buddy.
Someone's...
Oh, there they are.
Hello.
They have a much longer scar.
Well, we haven't been collecting...
Yeah, we don't need to feel threatened.
So it looks like they are also on the second round. They have the same pattern. Yeah, I mean it's the second time place of the game.
So these little cloth fish creatures, as we called them, they started off very scripted, but we thought that wasn't very fun or very replayable, and so Brian, one of our game designers, actually sort of rewrote them to be entirely AI driven, with some like scripting hints, but they are a lot more reactive and natural now than they were earlier on in development.
They kind of serve as a proxy for another player, but obviously they're sort of a more primitive life form, so since we don't have a human AI, it still works pretty well. They can follow you kind of like a dog.
Right, and they are kind of like the next sort of hint or step in the presence of life in this world. So there is definitely an evolution in terms of how we present that.
We also have a hint here. Notice all the creature that's made of claws are coming out of the stone serpent.
Yeah, that's the next kind of reveal in that whole narrative of the game.
I'm totally with you, John. Like this was such a nice. We wanted it to have that kind of playful sandbox quality, and I feel like it really did kind of come together that way because it's just so sort of pleasant and fun and also met. It's just like looks so awesome.
One of the early kind of things we were trying to do with the game is we were kind of using a hiking metaphor for a variety of reasons, but we were just trying early on to make a game that you could enjoy where you didn't have some superpower or super speed, where you could just walk through like a normal person would when they go into nature for a hike. You could kind of go at about that speed and just enjoy the environment and live in a place. And so we had to work really hard on making that kind of environment that is just naturally enjoyable. And then we still have to make the player really fast.
Yeah, so this is the level which we realize we have to create a mechanics like surfing, because if the entire dune is just walking, it feels very repetitive. And so, I think at the time I was playing Tiny Wing, the iPhone game. I remember showing it to Nick and John, saying, this game has a nice rhythm, there's up and downs. And, if you climb a dune, you woke up, maybe, when you come down, it felt differently. And so the surfing mechanics really kind of become the savior of, the potential of walking through miles and miles of sand, without any change of pace.
I mean, it's not maybe exactly realistic, but I do think it captures the feeling.
Definitely, we didn't go for realism with any of our kind of references to reality, the sand, whatever. We went for the feeling and the kind of mood that we want the player to experience. And I think that is kind of a unifying concept in that game company's design.
What is it's going for the reality in your head when you're experiencing it. Like, this was very much modeled from our experience at Pismo Dunes, but it doesn't really reflect. None of us could surf on sand the way these characters can. But
you watch the footage and it's like stumbling and falling over.
One thing to note in this level, in terms of just color and design, it's interesting, is the green sky. We wanted this level to be kind of a noon atmosphere, bright, sunny, happy, but I really didn't want to have a blue sky because I tried to save that blue color for the very end of the game to make it kind of a special reward for the end of your journey. So in order to preserve that, I chose green instead.
And I think that works really well. I mean, it keeps the world feeling very mysterious, but at the same time, this does feel very open and refreshing. And it's like a blue sky.
Yeah, it's unique.
So at some point, the game had a sandstorm where you actually have to seek for shelter in order to survive. But eventually, the sandstorm is more like become this particular area.
That was a much better choice, because this is a built thing, I feel like it speaks to the sort of subtext of the narrative and things. Then
an opportunity to talk about a little bit about the architecture of the game and how it was designed. It was also designed based on constraints from gameplay, kind of like the choice to make sky green. One funny thing is there's a lot of archways and things in the journey. Originally I wanted them to be round arches, but due to our constraints with collision detection, we needed to have arches that did not have surfaces like that, so we chose to make them these kind of stair-step arches because they work better with our tech, and that kind of influenced the entire design of the architecture.
I love when that kind of thing happens, though, where you end up at something that you actually can't imagine it any other way, but it was arrived at through dealing with constraints.
Could you imagine it any other way, Matt? I often felt pretty guilty about that, but it's amazing what Matt did, and Matt and Jack and our team with the limitations.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like Journey. Like it's really. I mean, I'm biased because, I'm just biased for a whole lot of reasons. But I really can't imagine it done differently.
This definitely has influences from lots of different ancient architecture, Greek architecture, Islamic architecture.
And you
But try to
talked
make
in one of the
something
things
new.
about the Native American.
Also, yes, Native American rug design was
Yeah.
a big influence on the architecture. It's interesting. So these sequences, the ancestor shows you, were all done in one weekend. That was a late night.
One late night extended for 58 hours.
It was definitely right up on the deadline. But I think it worked out really well.
That was we generally don't crunch very much at that game company, but Matt, knew it had to happen right at the end, and yeah, amazingly pulled through. Yeah, pretty much the entire set of cinematics for the game.
Yeah, they to me totally work, because that was one of those that I was really sort of struggling with musically, because I was having a hard time pinning down if they felt like they were final or not. And then at one point, just like out of nowhere, suddenly there was all these things in there that were really great. It was like from one moment to the next.
Oh,
your friend.
is he
maybe,
wanting to unlock the meditation trophy with you?
Join him. Sometimes it's good to take a moment.
Oh my goodness.
He just meditated super hard.
Well, sometimes on our life's journey, people we know will go away.
And that is
Is that cancer?
Oh.
Yes, that was the cancer feature that was added to the game.
his fish is still there. How sad.
Well, now we're gonna test Nick's networking code.
Yeah, so networking.
Rock solid.
This cutscene was quite a pain. I think there is a bug here, but
Don't reveal.
Don't tell
it'll
me.
be fixed in the patch.
I swear.
That
By
was
the time you
first,
play it.
that was
So
also
in-
the first.
actually, in-
so